Honda Civic Si is a lot like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You know, without the breaking and entering, or the destruction of property, or the food theft. It's not too fast, and it's not too slow. It's just right. It's not too expensive, but it's not cheap enough to cut a bunch of corners. It's just right. It's new, but it's not so new that it's unfamiliar. It's just right. The Civic Si is an affordable sport compact that, in the year 2025, only comes with a manual transmission. And that, for me, is just right.
This is the 2025 Honda Civic Si, and I'm Alanis King. Let's go for a drive and stick around for the end of this video to get this SI's full report card.
The Honda Civic Si is a mainstay on the car market. It's a sportier version of the Civic, and it's been around since 1986. That car, just like the 2025 model, had a 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine. But while the 2025 car has 200 horsepower, that original one had just 91. Imagine a new sports car with 91 horsepower. Honda and Acura have all kinds of performance markers, like Type R, Type S, and SI. Unlike Type R and Type S, where the R and S literally have no official meaning, SI does mean something. Thank goodness. SI stands for Sport Injection, but the I is lowercase, meaning the badge looks like it just says C. But Sport Injection means more than just injecting sport into the Civic lineup. It actually marketed that the car had a fuel injection system, and that original 1986 SI was the first Civic with a fuel-injected engine. So I guess SI meant C, no carburetors. When you look at the timeline of Honda Civic Si models, it's really fun to see the progress. You see the horsepower go from 91 to 108 to 125 to 160 to 197 to 201 to 205 and back down to 200, where we are today. But that whole time, there have only been two categories of transmission: a 5-speed manual and a 6-speed manual.
The Honda Civic Si typically falls in the middle of the Civic lineup. You have the basic commuter car at the bottom, the sport-lite version, which is the Si, in the middle, and the 315 horsepower Type R hot hatch at the top. The Si and Type R are sportier, cooler versions of the Civic, and as of right now, you can only get them with the manual transmission. So if you're driving around and you see the Si badge or the Type R one, you know the person in there is shifting their own gears. Unless they automatic swapped it, which would just be weird. The masses generally are not running out to buy manual-only Civics like the Si and the Type R. But in the grand scheme of Honda, they make a lot of sense because they give enthusiasts a new, fun, practical car to buy, and they also give normal people who would buy normal Civics a reason to think the Civic is sporty. And that's not a lie, it is. That's probably why Honda's sold about 30 million of them since the Civic debuted. This 2025 Honda Civic Si has a turbocharged 1.5-liter four-cylinder engine that makes 200 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque. Just like last year's car, that power goes through a 6-speed manual transmission to the front wheels because this is front-wheel drive only and also manual only. And the overarching thing you notice about this engine when you lift up the hood is that there is so much room in there. You would expect that from a 1.5-liter motor, but you could just reach in here and hug this thing, and you can see so many components when you look down here. It'd just be so easy to get in there and work on it. Mechanically, the 2025 Honda Civic Si has a lot of similarities to the last car, including a front limited slip differential. A differential allows the drive wheels to move at different speeds, and a common situation you see this in is when you're taking a turn. The outside wheel needs to move faster than the inside wheel to cover that amount of ground. A limited slip differential is really cool because in low traction situations, it'll redistribute the torque so that your wheels aren't slipping all over the place and you just have more driving ability, and this is a super, super desired feature in performance cars. From the top view with the hood open, you can see a lot of the mechanical components of this car. But if you do the same thing underneath, you're gonna run into very flat panels just covering the entire underbody of this car. That is for aerodynamics, and it works out because this car gets 37 on the highway, 27 in the city, and 31 combined. It's honestly really impressive for a performance car. Another cool thing is, while premium is recommended on this car, you can run it on regular. While a lot of features in the 2025 Si are really similar to the ones in the 2024, there are also a lot of small tweaks that just make this a better package overall. Those tweaks include the rev match system expanding to cover downshifts from second gear to first, updated safety tech that can better sense bikes, smoother inputs from the car while using adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist, standard heated front seats and USB-C ports, new Google built-in with a 3-year unlimited data plan, a standard 10.2-inch digital driver instrument cluster, shift indicator lights from the Type R, more rigidity in the suspension, subframe, and doors, and retuned suspension dampers to take advantage of increased body stiffness. It's generally my opinion that with tweaks like that, you are not going to be able to notice the drivability difference unless you drive the 2025 car back to back with the 2024 car. And I do not have a 2024 in the parking lot right here. But you can generally trust, especially with cars like the Honda Civic Si or the Mazda Miata, that the automaker is aware of what those cars are good at and where they have shortcomings. And when they make tweaks like that, they're just overall making the car a better package. And if you want a good package, perhaps in the mail, you should check out homefieldapparel.com and use my discount code Alanis24 for 15% off. This Jeff Gordon jacket is from Homefield, and it is amazing. Every time I put it on, I have so much confidence. I'm literally wearing dinosaur earrings while talking to you about a Honda Civic Si, and I understand why Jeff Gordon won 4 Cup Series championships, because who wouldn't looking like this? If you like college sports apparel or motorsports apparel or anything else, go to Homefield, use my code, and look like this. I now have some bad news. When the 2025 Honda Civic Si debuted, it started at $29,950. And that's a technicality, right? With fees and taxes, this is a $30,000 car. But it still started at under $30,000. Now, it starts at $30,250. So the Honda Civic Si, even on a technicality, is no longer a sub $30,000 car. And that is so sad.
The good news is the Si does not come with a lot of options on top of that starting price of $30,000 American dollars. You get 4 paint colors in 2025. Red, black, white, and gray. The white and gray are $455 extra, while the black and red are standard colors. And you should absolutely get the red. After that, your only real customization options are in tire choices and minor accessories like all-season floor mats, trim pieces, splash guards, and more. The only option on my loaner car is the $455 Urban Gray Pearl paint, and after fees, it costs $31,800 American dollars. Like I said, you should get the red.
That brings up the question, is the Honda Civic Si of today still a really, really, really good bargain? And the answer is a little iffy. When I drove the Honda Civic Si in 2020, it was the last generation car, and it started at $25,200. That is $5,000 less than the starting price of this car. But if you put that price into an inflation calculator, this price is right on the money. It just grew with inflation. The problem back then was that the Honda Civic Si had a competitor called the Hyundai Veloster N. It started at $27,000 and it made 250 horsepower compared to the Honda Civic Si's 205. Today, this Si also faces a big competitor, and that's the Hyundai Elantra N. The Hyundai Elantra N starts at $34,000, $4,000 more than this car, and makes 276 horsepower. And realistically, based on price, performance, interior quality, and everything else, the Elantra N is a Type R competitor, not an Si competitor. With their prices being so close, it really makes you wonder, can the Si compete with that? talk more about that later. First, we have another very important test, which is how many Atlantises can fit in this 2025 Honda Civic Si's trunk. And one thing I love about Civics is they have so much trunk room. I'm not wearing my bendy pants today, and I am not remotely concerned because I have so much room in here. Another thing we're doing with trunk tests now is, can you close your keys in there? Let's find out. Ooh, no you cannot. Let's try it again. That is a solid 2 Atlantises, and they're not getting locked in. The shift indicator lights! It's time to drive the Honda Civic Si. But before we go into hard driving and talk about how it drives and all of that, I do want to go over a few things on the interior. The interior of this car is very classic Honda Civic. It has a very similar design as the normal Civic and the Honda Civic Type R. You just see a lot of differences in the material and the things used inside of this car. I really like the inside of this car where it has red contrast stitching and red pieces. So along the dashboard, there's this honeycomb pattern for the vents, and then there's this red trim that follows it. And I think that's really nice. Another thing I really like about the interior of this car is that where most automakers put piano black, such as around the shifter, this car has a grayish metallic herringbone pattern, and it's really pretty for one, and two, it doesn't get all disgusting. I really do like the interior of the Honda Civic Si. I think the cloth seats with the red and black patterns and the Si logos are really pretty and fun. They're not as out there as the bright red interior of the Honda Civic Type R, but they're still nice and they still feel sporty. And I'm going to say, I don't know if it's a hot take or not, or I don't know if it's a cold take, I don't know if it's agreeable or not, but I like the shift knob of the Civic Si better than the shift knob in the Honda Civic Type R. So in the Civic Si, it is a metalish shift knob, right? It's really pretty, but then it has this leather trimmed wrapping around it with some red contrast stitching, and it's very pretty. In the Honda Civic Type R, it's all metal. There is no like little leather trim grip around it. And you know, it's very pretty. I like the way it looks in the Type R, and it also is very Type R in there. But when it's cold outside, that shift knob is cold. When it's hot outside, that shift knob is hot. So at least in this car, you have that little trim around it that you can grab if it's really hot. You can just do this little hand. Remember that video of the bus driver who was shifting like this? You can do that and be fine. The back seat of the Honda Civic Si is workable even if it's not super glamorous. So when you're back there, I'm 5'8.5". I have a couple of inches of legroom. What I don't have is rear air vents, and also the backs of these front seats are this really thin black cloth. And I always worry when I'm in a Civic Si that thin black cloth is going to get snagged by someone. You're gonna have someone back there with a purse or with something on their jeans or with a long jacket, and it's just gonna catch it in a way you don't want it to catch it, and it's gonna run like a pair of tights. I always worry about that. I've never had it happen in a Civic Si, but it always makes me a little bit nervous. So if you have a Honda Civic Si and you've had it for a while and you have the cloth backs to your front seats, leave me a comment and let me know if you've ever been worried about someone snagging something on it, or if they have. Let me know if this is a real fear or if I'm just being really nervous about it, please. Now that we've talked through the interior and comfort in the Honda Civic Si, we can talk about how it drives. And I think it's important to note that no matter what I am driving, Civic Si, Civic Type R, no matter what year it's from, there is still one underlying thought I always have, and it is, wow, performance can be fun and accessible and practical. And it's just so nice. Another underlying thought I always have is, wow, these things are so pinpoint good. Every single time I talk to a friend in the industry and we talk about Hondas, we talk about how they're so perfectly engineered. You know, they don't get goofy on you. I'm going into a corner in this Civic Si and it just feels so
perfect. It's so well done and well engineered. It's so nice for this to be a $30,000 car. The Honda Civic Si specifically is a blast because remember, this is 200 horsepower compared to the Honda Civic Type R's 315. This is a much slower car than the Type R, but it's still really fun. And I like slower cars. I mean, I drive all kinds of fast cars, but one thing I really, really love about slower cars is that they're just as fun in town as they are out on the good roads or a racetrack or anything like that, because of the fact that you can have fun and you can savor getting up to speed. Because if you have a really, really powerful car, to get up to speed is just like, tap the pedal. Oh, I'm going 60. Whereas in this car, you put this thing in second gear, you slam it into second gear and you accelerate, and the way it puts the power down is just so fun. And sure, you're not going at the speed of light, but you are having a lot of fun with the power you are putting down. And I think there's so much value in enjoying getting to the speed limit that you don't get in a lot of modern cars. We talked earlier about how the new Honda Civic Si takes shift indicator lights from the Honda Civic Type R, and I love those. It's so fun to be going down the road and having the dashboard light up in red and yellow to tell you it's almost time to shift. It's just so much fun. It adds this visceral experience that makes you feel like you're in a race car or you're on iRacing and you're just really ripping and having a good time. And I like it. It was a really nice addition to this car. Something that's not so fun from a drivability aspect is that this car does not have a physical handbrake, and I complain about this every single time I'm in this car. Why doesn't a Honda Civic Si have a physical handbrake? This is like the OG hot hatch in my opinion. Why can't I pull up on a handbrake? Why is it electronic? I don't really understand that decision, but I don't think I'm gonna win on that decision. Something I do really like about this car though is the suspension, because it's stiff enough to have fun out on a road like this, but it's not so stiff and harsh that you don't enjoy going around town. So when I'm out here, I have a blast in the corners, but also when I'm in town, I'm not just like, every time I hit a pothole or anything, or anytime I hit some kind of dip or rise in the road, it's not just painfully stiff. And I think that balance is really important and really nice. The most common thing I hear when people talk about the Honda Civic Si or the Honda Civic Type R is that this shifter is light and smooth and buttery. And you might go, people overuse the word buttery. Things really can't be that buttery all the time. And you know what? The only thing I ever describe as buttery is this shifter right here. It is so smooth. You put it in gear, it has this teeny little thunk, but it just slides from gear to gear without feeling loose and bad. So I love when I'm in this car and I go from reverse to first, and reverse is over near sixth, and you just pop it up over and up again, and it's so smooth feeling. It's just really rewarding and nice. Now, when you go into a hard corner like that, like a hard, tight corner, you do feel a little bit of understeer in this car, but it's a front-wheel drive car. That's what you get. It understeers. But other than that, the driving experience is just so fun in here. It doesn't matter that it's not super fast or super loud. I'm just having a blast. It rips up in the corners. It feels so nice. Oh, I love this car. But when it comes to Honda Civic Si versus Hyundai Elantra N, I think you have to ask yourself two questions. The first is, how strict is your budget? Is it $30,000 or nothing? Or is it, we could push it to 34, that's fine. And the second question is, how brand loyal are you? Are you just a Honda person through and through? Are you someone who, no matter the price, no matter the performance, you're gonna go with the Honda? Or are you someone who's open to trying out the Hyundai? I think this is really important because there are some people who are just not gonna move brands, and that's totally fine. This is a great car to get. But if you're open to moving brands, I do think
that the Elantra N will give you some challenges. You'll go, that's pretty good, and that's a pretty good price, and that's a cool car. I think the problem that Honda needs to solve, if Honda deems it to be a problem, is do you make this car more powerful or do you make it cheaper? Because in reality, this Honda Civic Si is 5 horsepower less than the one I drove in 2020. And the Type R is 315 and the Elantra N is 276. This one is way, way below those. And I think if you bumped the Civic Si to 240, 250, that $4,000 gap between this car and the Elantra N would not look so close anymore because of the fact that this would severely undercut that and give you almost as much power and give you a different driving experience. I don't know if that's something that Honda wants to address. I don't know if sales are an issue or not, because when automakers report sales, they report it for the whole model, not for the trim breakdown. So you only see how many Civics they sell, not how many sports Civics they sell. But I think to make this a really, really competitive offering in a world where Hyundai exists, you either up the power or you lower the price. Now that we've driven the 2025 Honda Civic Si, it's time to give it a grade. Welcome to Alanis's report card. The exterior on this car gets an A. It's mature, it's sporty looking, it's nice, and what more could you ask for on a performance car that costs $30,000. The interior gets a B+. I like the way it looks and feels, and I think it's nice in there. There are a few pain points though, including not really enough comfort features, and also I feel like it's gonna be really easy to get the inside of that car dirty. Like I said, I had a brand new one a few months ago and it just had dirt all in that cloth, and it's gonna be a lot of cleaning probably. The performance on this car gets an A-, but I say that with the caveat that this car either needs more power or a lower price to compete well with the Elantra N. The value gets a B+. With that same caveat, the Elantra N is right there. Would I take this car on a road trip? Absolutely I would. And overall, we're gonna give it an A-.
The Honda Civic Si isn't perfect, but by itself, it's pretty close. It's a refined, affordable, and fun enthusiast car. Each new Si is a slight build upon itself, taking the outgoing car and making it a little bit better. As the cost of living and buying cars continues to rise, getting a new manual-only performance sedan for $30,000 is refreshing. But thanks to Hyundai, it's still a lot less of a deal today than it was in the past.
I love the Honda Civic Si. I clap and I squeal every single time I see one, and I've bought at least a couple of Honda Civic Si t-shirts in my lifetime. But at its current price and power figures, I would not be surprised if Goldilocks walked on over to the Hyundai dealership and took a look at that Elantra N before deciding if the Si was just right.